This webcast is the second in a series of webcasts looking at business activity monitoring in BizTalk Server 2006, and we're going to be looking at the views in this section. The application that we're using is the one that I used when I was demonstrating the sequential convoy Sushi server webcast, and so if you want a background on the application you can check out this webcast. We're continuing from the BAM Part 1 webcast that I recorded probably about an hour ago, which is looking at BAM activities, so it's good to check out that one. We're going to be basically building on the solution that we started developing in Part 1. In this webcast we're going to look at generating BAM views. We're going to be looking at generating a duration, working with dimensions and measures, creating a pivot table, and then deploying the BAM solution, and using the BAM portal to be able to view the BAM data. The view that we're generating the scenario is for the restaurant manager. In the last webcast we looked at generating something for the sushi chefs, showing the information about the sushi on the conveyor belt in real time. The restaurant manager is more concerned about long-term information, how much sushi is being consumed in the restaurant, how long it spends on the conveyor belt, and then for actually planning things that are going on in the restaurant, what the peak demand is in the restaurant, when this peak demand occurs, and also the long-term production trends that are going on within the restaurant. The manager also needs to be able to modify these views when they're actually viewing the data in the portal application. As always, in the previous example I started off with a actual sketch on a piece of paper, and when I'm running courses this is one of the demos I do in the Quick Learn BizTalk Expert Series BAM course. I always do this on a whiteboard just so we know exactly what we're aiming at, and it makes it much easier when I'm working in Excel to be able to generate the activities and the views. So in Part 1 we actually generated the BAM activity, and we can actually see this by going into the BAM activity, selecting the sushi process activity and clicking on edit activity here. It's a very simple activity. I like to keep things very simple when I'm just demoing this for new users. We can see that we've got an activity has the name of sushi process. We've got two milestones in it: when the sushi was created, when the sushi was consumed. They're both date time data types, and then the actual name, which is going to be the type of the sushi that's being produced, which is business data text, and that is a maximum length of 100 there. So that's okay. I'm going to click on OK here and go into the actual view creation wizard, and with the create new view, which is the default option, I'm going to click on next here and give my view a name, which is going to be sushi production. Now if you've got multiple activities you can choose which ones to select. I've just got the one, so it's going to be select all activities, and then if you've got a lot of data points and you only want a few of them in the view, you can choose them, but I'm going to choose to use all of these. In the actual view we do need to have all of these present there. Now here we can generate things like aliases and durations and so on, and one of the things that I'm interested in is how long the sushi spends on the conveyor belt. And a duration is the difference in time between two business milestones. So I can say that my duration is going to be called time on belt, and this is going to be the difference between when the sushi was created and when the sushi was consumed. Now default resolution is day, and I'm actually going to change this and go down to the second because we want fairly accurate information on how long the sushi has been on the conveyor belt, and I'm going to click on OK there. So that's my duration generated. Now when we work with our pivot table we're going to be working with dimensions and measures, and so what we need to do is to switch back to the drawing that I did when I was generating, basically designing the actual view here. Now the dimensions in the pivot table are going to be the stuff that appears across the top of the pivot table here, which is going to be the name of the sushi, and the stuff that appears down the side of the pivot table here, which is going to be the actual date when the sushi was created. And the measures are going to be the items that appear in the middle here, the actual numeric values. So going back to the virtual machine, I'm going to start generating my dimensions, and the first one was going to be the actual name of the sushi. So sushi type will be the name of that. It is going to be a data dimension, and I'm going to select that it is going to be the name of the sushi from the sushi process activity and click on OK there. The next dimension is going to be a time dimension, and it is going to be called the time produced, and that is going to be one of the milestones here, and we can select it's the created time and it's the time when the sushi was actually produced here. Again, we've got the choice of resolution, and because we want to drill down into you know exactly when the the actual restaurant is at its busiest, we'll need something like year, month, day, hour, minutes. So we can probably group by hour and see, you know, sort of over the period of a day, how many customers are consuming what type of sushi at certain times there, and select OK. Now if we drop back to the diagram, you can see that I've got both of my dimensions, the name here and the actual timestamp here, which we're using down here. It's time to start looking at the actual measures, and I've just basically sketched out, and here I've just put in the number of sushis, but we're also maybe interested in the actual average duration of the sushi, how long it spends on the conveyor belt. So back to the virtual machine, I'm going to generate my first measure, which is number produced. And this is going to be a count of the sushi process activity, how many times that activity is going to be activated in the restaurant. Click on OK there. The next the next measure is going to be an average, and it's going to be the time on belt. And I'm going to go down here and select that it's going to be the actual time on belt. That's the actual duration that we've got in the sushi process view there. And click on OK there. So I'm keeping things very simple here. I've just got 2 dimensions and 2 measures. I recommend doing something like this when you're first working with BAM. I'm going to click on Next, and click on Finish, and then I'm going to start generating my pivot table. So generating the pivot table view is a very basic operation. We've got our pivot table field list appearing here, and we've got the various items that we've got present here. Now I always go back to the sketch and say, okay, this is what I drew, and this is what I want to make the pivot table look like. And you can see we've already got the basic form of the pivot table. We just need to add our dimensions, add our measures, and just check that it does look something like we've got in this scribbled note here. So going back here, I'm going to drop the date produced where it says drop row fields here, and we've got 2007, 2008, and we're going to be able to drill down into the actual months and days and hours and minutes as we actually put this into production. The sushi type here, I'm going to drop into the drop column fields here, and we've got name 1, name 2, name 3, and the total appearing here. So it is starting to look fairly similar to what I've got in the sketch. Now I'm going to need the number produced. That's going to be one of my measures, and they go in the data items section, and it's basically dropping in some dummy data so we can see you know, what this looks like. Not that accurate. We want to produce more than 5 sushis in 2007, but the numbers will be updated with the stuff that we get from BAM, so that should be fine. Time on belt here, I'm going to drop this into the pivot table as well, and that's showing us sort of the average time that the sushi spend on the belt. So I've got for each sushi type, I can see for each sort of time duration how many we're producing and what the average time is that they spend on the belt. So this is almost ready to deploy. There's 2 things that I'm going to need to select. They are pretty important as running through the demo, and I very often forget these when I'm working with business activity monitoring, sometimes embarrassingly in front of the students when I'm doing a demo here. So I'm going to try and remember to get these right. I'm going to go into the pivot table options here, and I'm going to change the name of the pivot table from pivot table 1 to sushi produced. When you're working in the BAM portal, this pivot table name is going to be used to actually display the view in the BAM portal. So if we leave them all with pivot table 1, pivot table 2, pivot table 3, it's not going to look very good for the business analyst. So I'm going to choose sushi produced here so we get that appearing on the menu in the BAM portal. The other option is I'm going to mark this pivot table for real-time aggregation. You've got 2 options in BAM. You can either use real-time aggregation or you can use Wrapup cubes. And when you're running demos, it's really good to have the real-time aggregation option. You'll see the information being updated in the BAM portal instantly. With large data volumes, you may want to use the Wrapup cubes here, but because we're running on a virtual machine, we can't really sort of build any scenario where that would be appropriate. So I'm going to basically save this down to the actual hard drive. I'm then going to actually export this as XML, so taking the BAM export XML, and I'm going to save it down and just basically go into my Sushi BAM folder. And this is the first one that I did. I'm just going to save this out as Sushi BAM 2, and this is going to be this sort of more complex definition that contains the view. And now we're done in Excel. We've done everything we wanted to do there. The next stage is to actually deploy this BAM definition into the actual BAM databases. We covered the deployment in the first activity, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. I'm just going to quickly go in and change down to the root directory, then go into the program files, then go into the BizTalk directory and into the tracking directory, and it's going to be the BM tool that we use to actually run this deployment here. So very much like in the last example, I'm going to first I'll change my prompt so you can see the command that we're typing in more easily, and then just type BM, and we're going to use the deploy all option. We're going to specify our definition file, and again I'm going to copy paste this so we've got the mistyped directory name from the first lab, and then I'm going to take the Sushi BAM2, which is the actual definition that contains the view there, and just deploy this. Now this is going to take a bit longer than in the previous activity because we're going to deploy an activity and a view and the security there. But that sort of went quite smoothly, so I can go in and just run this query, and I'm basically querying on the views for active instances and completed instances. And I'm going to refresh these views here because we should be getting a real-time aggregation view here generated here. So I'm just going to do a quick refresh and see if we can select that view. So what we're interested in is the Sushi produced RTA view. So I'm going to drop this onto the query window and do a select star from on this. Now when we use the real-time aggregation, we sort of fake an ULAT cube in SQL Server by using this real-time aggregation view, and as the actual sushi is being consumed in the restaurant and created, we're going to be populating the active instances and completed instances, and we're also going to be updating this RTA view, and this allows us to be able to generate these pivot tables off the real-time data without using SQL Server analysis services. So next thing to do is to just run the orchestration and just see if we're getting the data appearing in those views. So I'm going to go back to my project file, and I'm just going to F5 the project, and that's going to start a couple of applications. We've got our Sushi console here, and we've also got the chef's console that we built in the previous example, and I'll just have this up and running so we've got a confirmation that stuff is happening correctly in the BAM databases. So sending a couple of sushis through on the conveyor belt, we should see the information about those appearing in the chef's console. And then we've got some sushi coming in on the conveyor belt, and we'll quickly consume this sushi. Must be quite busy in the restaurant today, everything's just getting taken off straight away. And we'll see that this sushi does get completed. So we know that the business activity monitoring is picking up the information from the conveyor belt and basically generating the information in the BAM primary import database. So just to see what's going on in the primary import database, I can actually exit from these applications now. I'm going to go into just run this query here. First we'll look at the completed instances table, and we can see that we've got our 5 completed instances, and then just look in the RTA view, real-time aggregation view, and you can see that this is basically bringing in stuff like the time on the belt and the actual sushis that we've got here, and from this we're going to be able to generate an actual real-time view in the BAM portal that can actually display this information. So we're going to just open the BAM portal and just take a look at this data and see how the data will be presented to the restaurant manager. So I'm just going to start the BAM portal. If I go start and or programs BizTalk server 2006, we'll find the BAM portal website link here. Now, contrary to popular belief, this is not a SharePoint website. It has no connection with SharePoint. There's a lot of people have been saying that it's based on Windows SharePoint services. There's even a book, which I won't name the title of, that specifies that this is based on Windows SharePoint services. It's not true. It's just a regular ASP.NET web application. So you don't need Windows SharePoint services installed to get this to run. And I haven't got Windows SharePoint services on this machine here. So this is a sort of basic view on the data. We can drill into the activity search and look at the sushi process activity. Drop the various items on here and just run this query here. Running a bit short on pixels, I've got a fairly low resolution here, but I should be able to execute this query and see the information about our BAM activity here. So we can see that we've produced 5 different sushis. This is the creation time, and this is how long those sushis spent on the conveyor belt, roughly about 20 seconds each, so everything's going fairly quickly in this restaurant. We've also got the actual aggregation view here, and I'm just going to OK on this security warning here. And we can see that for the year of 2008 here we've got these 3 different types of sushi. We've produced 2 of these, 1 of these and 2 of these, and this is showing the average time that those sushi spent on the conveyor belt. And we've got some information here. I can just customize this a bit by clicking on the legend here, and what I'm going to do is basically drag off the number of produced here. What I'm interested is at how long these sushi spend on the actual conveyor belt, the average time that they spend on the conveyor belt. So it's roughly between 20 and 20.2 seconds here. I can also, if I want to, take off the time on the conveyor belt, go into the actual field list and drag on the number that we've produced here. And so this is showing the number that has been produced for these different sushis. Now, the great thing about the real-time aggregation is this data is going to be updated in real time. So we're going to crank up the application again, run some sushis through the restaurant, and just view this data in real time as the sushis are being consumed. So I'm going to go in here. We don't really need the actual chef view. What I'm going to do is just basically set the Sushi console as the startup project, and just F5 this project to get the Sushi console running. And then I'm going to start sending some sushi through the restaurant here. So just clicking on a few of these, just to quickly generate some sushi that's running through. That is being produced. And then I'm going to start consuming some of this sushi. So some of it I'm going to consume before we actually reach the RFID reader. Some of this stuff is going to get taken off the conveyor belt instantly. Some of the other sushi I'm going to leave on the conveyor belt, and I'll send through quite a few bits of sushi, just clicking on this quite a lot to generate quite a lot of data, so we can actually see what's going on in the BAM portal. Unfortunately on my VM it's slowing stuff down a bit because I've got Camtasia running as well as all these applications here. And I'm just going to run through a bit of consumption there just to show the sushi being consumed. Now going back to the portal application here, if I just click on a refresh here, you can see that this is instantly changing, and we've got our 5 types of sushi and the actual graphs here for how much is being produced here. And as the sushi is going round on the conveyor belt and being consumed, we will see these graphs start to change here and be updated. So if I go back into the Sushi console, we'll consume a few more bits of sushi. Back to the BAM portal. And we should see as these orchestrations complete that the graphs are being updated in real time. I'm going to go in here, generate some more. It didn't show the sort of full responsiveness of that, so I'm then going to go in here and just click to actually consume as many of these sushis as I can. And we should hopefully see the graph being updated as we refresh here. And you can see the changes are being made to the actual numbers here. Going up here, if I refresh this actual view, you can see in the view here, we're just looking at the number produced of these different types of sushis. So as I mentioned before, we can drag off the number produced and view the field list, drag on the average time on the belt up here. And this is showing us sort of how popular the sushi is in our restaurant. So you can see that this sushi here is spending longer on the conveyor belt than the other sushi types, and this one here is the most popular. That one's being taken off the conveyor belt the quickest here. If we go in here and just consume these have probably been on the conveyor belt for longer than the others. We should see this after a few seconds having some type of effect on the sushi that has been consumed, the actual consumption times. So you can see all the consumption times have risen here for these various sushi types. And the manager also wanted to be able to customize these views, so you can also do things like, let's take off time on the belt, and we'll go back to the number produced. Drop that in the data fields. So the sushi manager may say, okay, well this is okay, but what I really want to see this in the form of a pie chart. So okay that. And we've got the number produced per year, so what we want to do is to go into the pivot table fields options, just drag off the year and drop in the name here.
So this is giving us for each of these sushi types the number of produced shown in a pie chart rather than in the actual bar chart. And you can also go up to the pivot table and modify this. This basically reflects what we're seeing in the graph as well. So dropping on the field list, I can drop the name up here, time on the belt down here, and sorry, that was wrong. The actual date produced, I'll drop down here, knock off the time on the belt, and here we've got the actual production stats here and the time on the belt. I'm not actually demoing this for a long period of time, so I can't really go in and look at the actual trends here. But here we've got the trends per minute. So if you left this running for a while, you would see at 13, 14, 15 and 16 the actual number that you are producing and the time on the belt. So from this view you can actually gauge what's going on in the restaurant at that particular period in time. As I've mentioned before, the BAM portal is pretty basic. It's okay for a proof of concept, but if you're going to be doing something that you're going to be using within an organisation, much better to use something like SQL Server reporting services to actually query on these views in the primary import database and be able to generate more meaningful results on that. Okay, so a wrap up on this and also on the BAM stuff that we've been doing in both of these webcasts. As I mentioned at the first webcast, I think this is really important, so I'm going to say it again. BAM can be simple. You don't need to start working with complex activities and views. I find that it just gets confusing if you try to start with something too complex in the beginning, so I just picked something dead simple. A couple of, just one activity, just a few data points, simple view, a couple of dimensions, a couple of measures. That's all you need to do to get BAM working, and once you've got that end-to-end scenario working, then you can go back and start with something a bit more complex. Basically, a simple BAM implementation can add a lot of value to a proof of concept project that you're building within your organisation. So if you spent a couple of weeks building a proof of concept to show a customer or show one of your managers, it can basically take half a day to implement a simple BAM solution on that. The data can either be business or it can be operations related. So you could be tracking, instead of the sushi consumption time, you could be tracking the time it takes to complete an orchestration and giving some operations data. And when you're demoing a BizTalk solution in front of customers and managers, you know, normally it's just messages going in, messages coming out, and some transformations going on. Adding a BAM solution can give you this sort of real-time view in the BAM portal or in SQL Server reporting services, and it really adds value to your proof of concept. The BAM portal, as I mentioned, it's okay for just proof of concept, so I'd probably use this if I was demoing something to somebody or doing a quick demo in front of a class. If I was going to be doing something in my organisation, I would use SQL Server reporting services or some kind of other data access technology, some business intelligence technology to show the data in a better way. Check out the other webcasts. This is based on the Sequential Convoy Sushi server webcast, and that's basically running through how we can build this sequential convoy, how we can take these tag reads and generate the business processes from those. So that's really cool if you want to learn a bit more about orchestrations. You should have already watched the Part 1 webcast, and this is basically laying down the groundwork for this webcast, showing how we can actually build the BAM activities. Lastly, if you want to really get into BAM, we have a quick learn course, which is the BizTalk Expert Series BAM course. It's a 3-day course, so if you contact www.quicklearn.com, you've got information on that course. Training centre where I teach the courses, and I teach in English by the way, is based in Stockholm. So if you live in Europe, it might be a bit quicker to travel over to Stockholm. It can be a great place to visit in the winter as well as in the summer. And www.informata.se should have the information present if you actually search for the BAM course there.